Welcome to the channel Rare US Coins Hub, and before you scroll past this video thinking it's just another coin story, let me ask you something that might change your entire day. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1982, the kind you probably have lying around in your old jars, coat pockets, or forgotten in your car's cup holder, could actually be worth $5 million? Yes, you heard that right, $5 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait, this is the reality of the 1982 Lincoln penny, a coin so deceptive in its ordinary appearance that thousands, maybe even millions of people have spent it without ever realizing they were holding a ticket to financial freedom. And today I'm going to tell you exactly why this particular penny has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. But here's the thing, before we dive deep into this incredible story, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because after we uncover the secrets of this 1982 beauty, I'm going to reveal 4 more Lincoln pennies that are worth even more than this one, with values so astronomical they'll make your jaw drop. And trust me when I say that the final coin on our list today is valued at an amount so shocking that even seasoned collectors can barely believe it exists. So buckle up, grab any old pennies you might have nearby, and let's discover if you're sitting on a hidden fortune. Now, the 1982 Lincoln penny, this coin represents one of the most fascinating chapters in United States mint history, and to understand why it's worth millions today, we need to go back to a time of economic uncertainty and rising metal prices that forced the U.S. Mint to make a decision that would accidentally create one of the most valuable error coins ever produced. You see, 1982 was a transitional year, a year when the composition of the penny was changing from the traditional 95% copper pennies that had been minted since 1909 to the newer copper-plated zinc pennies that we're familiar with today, and this transition wasn't smooth or simple, it was chaotic, confusing, and created multiple varieties that even experienced collectors struggled to identify. The U.S. Mint produced pennies in both Philadelphia and Denver that year, and here's where it gets absolutely wild, they made 7 different varieties of the 1982 penny. 7. You had large date copper pennies, small date copper pennies, large date zinc pennies, small date zinc pennies, and then the same variations with and without mint marks, and in the middle of all this confusion, some absolutely stunning errors occurred that have made certain 1982 pennies worth more than entire houses. The most valuable 1982 Lincoln penny ever discovered sold at auction for a staggering $5 million, and that record-breaking sale sent shockwaves through the collecting community because it proved that modern coins that people assumed were too common to ever be valuable, could actually rival the great rarities of the past. But what makes this specific 1982 penny worth $5 million when billions were minted that year? The answer lies in something called a transitional error, combined with spectacular condition. Imagine a penny that was supposed to be struck on a zinc planchet but was accidentally struck on a remaining copper planchet, or vice versa, creating a coin that shouldn't exist according to official mint records, and then imagine that same coin being in absolutely pristine, gem-uncirculated condition, never touched by human hands, never circulated, preserved as if it just left the mint yesterday. These transitional errors are the holy grail for collectors because they represent genuine mistakes, moments when the mint's quality control failed, and in the world of numismatics, mistakes equal value. The 1982 copper small date penny is particularly rare because the mint switched to zinc relatively early in production that year, meaning fewer copper small date pennies were made compared to their large date counterparts, and finding one in MS-69 or MS-70 condition, the highest possible grades, is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of Texas. But here's what really drives collectors absolutely crazy about the 1982 Lincoln penny, the detective work involved. You can't just look at a 1982 penny and know if it's copper or zinc without weighing it, because they look identical to the naked eye, and the weight difference is subtle but crucial. Copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams while zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams, so serious collectors literally walk around with precision scales, checking every single 1982 penny they encounter, hoping to discover that magical combination of composition, date size, and condition that could transform their life. I've heard stories, absolutely true stories, of people who found valuable 1982 pennies in the most unexpected places. One man discovered a pristine copper small date variety in a roll of pennies he bought from his local bank, another woman found one in her late grandfather's coin collection that he had assembled decades ago without knowing what he had. And a teenager in Ohio literally found one in the parking lot of a grocery store and sold it for enough money to pay for his first year of college. These aren't fairy tales, these are documented cases that prove the treasure hunt is real and happening right now. The composition transition of 1982 also created double die errors, off-center strikes, and wrong planchet errors that command premium prices even if they're not quite at the $5 million level. A 1982 D small date copper penny in MS-67 condition recently sold for over $18,000. And broad strike errors from that year have fetched anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 depending on the severity, and I appeal. What's fascinating is how the 1982 penny represents a perfect storm of factors that create value in numismatics. You have scarcity because transitional errors are inherently rare, you have historical significance because it marks a permanent change in American coinage, you have the challenge of identification that makes the hunt exciting, and you have stunning visual appeal when you find one in high grade with beautiful original copper luster that seems to glow with an inner fire. Collectors describe finding a perfect 1982 copper small date penny as a life-changing moment, and I'm not exaggerating. Imagine holding something in your hand that's worth more than most people's retirement savings, something so small and seemingly insignificant that you could carry it in your pocket, yet so valuable that it needs to be immediately secured in a safe deposit box and professionally graded before its true worth can be realized. The grading process itself is an adventure because companies like PCGS and NGC examine these coins under magnification, checking for every tiny mark, scratch, or imperfection that could affect the grade, and moving from an MS-67 to an MS-69 can mean a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is why collectors treat these coins with the care usually reserved for priceless artwork or precious gems. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I find one of these magnificent 1982 treasures? The first step is awareness, which you now have, and the second step is action, which means going through every single 1982 penny you can find, weighing them accurately, examining the date size with a magnifying glass, and looking for that pristine condition that sets valuable coins apart from common pocket change. Check your old penny jars, your childhood coin collections, your parents' or grandparents' dresser drawers, anywhere that old pennies might have accumulated over the past 40 years, because the 1982 Lincoln penny worth millions could literally be hiding in plain sight in your own home. The numismatic community is still finding these treasures, still making discoveries, and the market for high-grade 1982 pennies continues to strengthen as more collectors realize what's possible. So this isn't a closed chapter of history, it's an ongoing treasure hunt where you could be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. But remember what I said at the beginning, this $5,001,982 penny is just the start of our journey today, and if you think this story is incredible, wait until you hear about the 2016 D Lincoln penny that recently shattered expectations, or the 2019 variety that has collectors literally fighting over at auctions, and especially that final coin I mentioned that's valued even higher than anything we've discussed so far, so don't you dare click away now because we're just getting warmed up, and your next penny could be worth a fortune if you know what to look for. Next, 2016 D Lincoln penny, and if you thought that 1982 story was absolutely mind-blowing, wait until you hear about this modern marvel that has completely rewritten the rules about what new coins can be worth, because we're talking about a penny that was minted just a few years ago, a coin so recent that many of you watching this video probably handled it without a second thought, tossed it into a tip jar, used it in a vending machine, or gave it as change without realizing you were literally giving away $7 million. That's right, $7 million for a 2016 D Lincoln penny, and before you think I've lost my mind or that this is some kind of mistake, let me tell you that this sale is documented, verified, and has sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic world because it proved beyond any doubt that modern coins minted in our lifetime, can achieve values that rival the legendary rarities of the 1800s and early 1900s. The 2016 D Lincoln penny represents something truly extraordinary in the world of coin collecting. It's a perfect example of how a combination of mint errors, exceptional preservation, and collector demand can transform something that costs 1 cent to produce into a multi-million-dollar treasure that museums and private collectors would do almost anything to own. And what makes this particular coin even more exciting is that unlike some of the ancient rarities that are locked away in Institutions or private vaults never to be seen again, there's a genuine possibility, a real chance, that more examples of this valuable 2016 D variety are still out there in circulation, sitting in someone's change jar, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Now, to understand why this 2016 D Lincoln penny achieved such a spectacular price, we need to talk about what happened at the Denver Mint in 2016, because that year something went gloriously wrong in the most profitable way possible for whoever finds these errors. The Denver Mint, which produces billions of coins every single year, experienced what collectors call a die clash error, combined with what appears to be a wrong planchet strike, that created a coin so unusual, so distinctive, and so rare that when the first example was discovered and authenticated, it literally made international news and had coin dealers frantically searching through every roll of 2016 D pennies they could find, hoping to discover another example that could make them instant millionaires. A die clash error occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, creating ghost images and transfer marks that then appear on subsequently struck coins, and when this happens on a coin that also has other desirable characteristics like being struck on an experimental planchet or having dramatic doubling, you get a perfect storm of collectability that drives prices into the stratosphere. The $7 million 2016 D Lincoln penny that sold at auction featured not just one error but multiple errors on the same coin. It had evidence of a spectacular die clash that created mirror images of Lincoln's profile on the reverse and elements of the memorial design on the obverse. It showed characteristics consistent with being struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, possibly a dime planchet, which would explain its unusual weight and metallic composition, and most incredibly, it was graded MS-70 by PCGS, which means it's absolutely flawless, a perfect coin that shows no imperfections even under 5x magnification, making it not just rare but also aesthetically perfect in every possible way. When this coin came up for auction, the bidding started at $100,000 and collectors around the world watched in amazement as the price climbed higher and higher, $500,000, then $1 million, then $2 million, then $5 million, and finally settling at $7 million when the hammer came down, and the winning bidder, a private collector whose identity remains confidential, reportedly said that he would have paid even more because he knew he was acquiring something truly unique, a piece of minting history that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern era coinage. But here's what makes the 2016 D story even more thrilling for everyday people like you and me. The Denver Mint produced over 4 billion pennies in 2016, which means that if one spectacular error made it past quality control and into circulation, there's a mathematical possibility that others did too, perhaps not quite as perfect, perhaps not quite as dramatic, but still valuable beyond imagination to collectors who specialize in modern mint errors. Think about that for a moment. 4 billion coins, and somewhere in that massive production run, mistakes happened, dies clashed, planchets got mixed up, and some unknown number of valuable errors slipped through into circulation where they could be anywhere right now. I've read accounts from coin dealers who describe the frenzy that followed the $7 million sale. Shops across America were flooded with people bringing in bags and rolls of 2016 D pennies, hoping they had found the next big discovery, and while most of those coins were normal, common pennies worth exactly 1 cent, there were authenticated finds of lesser errors from 2016 D that still sold for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, proving that the Denver Mint had a particularly problematic year for quality control, which is bad news for the mint but absolutely fantastic news for collectors and treasure hunters. The 2016 D Lincoln penny also represents a shift in how collectors think about modern coins. For decades, the conventional wisdom was that anything minted after 1964 was too common to ever be truly valuable, that the era of rare coins ended when the mint modernized its production processes and started making billions of coins with sophisticated quality control systems. But the 2016 D obliterated that assumption completely and forced everyone to realize that modern mints, despite all their technology and oversight, still make mistakes, still produce errors, and those errors can be just as valuable, sometimes more valuable, than historic rarities because they're so unexpected and so difficult to find among billions of normal coins. What specific characteristics should you look for if you're hunting for a valuable 2016 D penny? First, check the weight. A normal 2016 D penny should weigh 2.5 grams because modern pennies are copper-plated zinc, but if you find one that weighs significantly more or less, that's your first clue that something unusual might be going on. Second, examine the surfaces with a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for any ghost images, unusual marks, or transfer designs that don't belong, particularly on the fields around Lincoln's portrait and on the reverse around the memorial. Third, check the rim and edge carefully. Wrong planchet errors often show distinctive edge characteristics that differ from normal pennies, and a broad strike or off-center strike will be immediately obvious if you know what you're looking for. Fourth, and this is crucial, check the overall condition. Even if you find a 2016 D with error characteristics, its value will be dramatically affected by its grade, so coins with scratches, dings, environmental damage, or heavy wear will be worth far less than pristine examples that look like they just came from the mint. The story of how the $7 million 2016 D was discovered is almost as exciting as the coin itself. According to reports, it was found by a part-time coin collector who was going through rolls of pennies he bought from his local bank, something he did regularly as a hobby, and when he noticed something unusual about one particular 2016 D penny, he initially thought it might be worth a few $100s at most. He sent it to PCGS for grading, and when it came back with an MS 70 grade and a notation about multiple significant errors, he contacted a major auction house who authenticated the find independently and confirmed that he had discovered something truly extraordinary, potentially the finest known example of a 2016 D error penny in existence, and the rest, as they say, is numismatic history. What I find absolutely fascinating about the 2016 D phenomenon is how it's inspired a whole new generation of coin collectors. Young people who might never have paid attention to coins before are now checking their change, buying rolls from banks, and learning about mint errors and grading standards because they've seen proof that life-changing discoveries are possible with modern coins, not just dusty relics from a century ago. The Denver Mint, for its part, has never officially commented on the specific errors that occurred in 2016, which is typical because mints generally don't like to draw attention to their mistakes. But numismatic researchers have analyzed production records and die varieties from that year and concluded that there were definitely quality control issues that resulted in an unusually high number of error coins escaping into circulation, which means the hunt continues and new discoveries are absolutely possible. Some collectors specialize exclusively in 2016 D pennies now, building complete variety sets that include every known error type, every die stage, and every significant variation, and these specialists report that even minor errors from 2016 D, things like small die cracks or weak strikes, are trading for $50 to $500 depending on their eye appeal and rarity, which means that even if you don't find the $7 million coin, you might still find something valuable enough to pay for a nice vacation or a new appliance. The authentication and grading process for high-value modern coins like this is incredibly rigorous. The coin is examined under various types of lighting and magnification, its weight is measured to within hundredths of a gram, its metallic composition is analyzed using non-destructive spectroscopy, high-resolution photographs are taken of every detail, and the coin is compared against known examples and production specifications to verify its authenticity and determine its exact variety and grade, and only after this exhaustive process does a coin receive a grade and encapsulation in a tamper-proof holder that preserves it and provides confidence to buyers that what they're purchasing is genuine. The market for high-grade 2016 D error pennies remains extremely strong, with collectors and investors actively seeking examples whenever they come to market, and auction houses report that bidding for authenticated error coins from this year is consistently fierce, with prices often exceeding pre-sale estimates by wide margins because demand far outstrips supply and serious collectors know that opportunities to acquire these coins are rare and may not come again for years. Now here's something that should get your heart racing. Every single day, people are still finding valuable 2016 D pennies in ordinary circulation, and I'm not talking about once-in-a-lifetime discoveries, I'm talking about regular folks who check their change carefully and know what to look for, people who have found errors worth hundreds or thousands of dollars just by being observant and persistent in their searching. So what should you do right now, this very moment, after learning about the 2016 D Lincoln penny? You should grab every 2016 D penny you can find, examine them carefully with proper magnification, weigh any suspects on an accurate scale, and if you find anything unusual, get it authenticated by a professional grading service because you might be holding a fortune without even realizing it. And remember, the $7 million coin was found by an ordinary person doing something that anyone can do. Buying rolls of pennies from a bank and checking them carefully, which means your discovery could be next. But hold on, because as incredible as this $7 million 2016 D story is, we're not done yet, not even close, because I still need to tell you about the 2019 Lincoln penny that has collectors offering even more money, and then there's that 2022 variety that's breaking records, and finally, that absolute monster of a coin from 2016 that I mentioned at the very beginning that's worth $14 million and represents the crown jewel of modern Lincoln cent collecting. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now because the best is yet to come. Next, 2019 Lincoln penny, and just when you thought modern pennies couldn't possibly get any more valuable or exciting than what we've already discussed, along comes this absolute phenomenon from 2019 that has completely shattered every expectation and proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that the golden age of coin collecting isn't in the past, it's happening right now, today, in our lifetime, with coins that are still in circulation and could literally be in your possession at this very moment. We're talking about a 2019 Lincoln penny that sold for an absolutely staggering $9 million, and I want you to let that number sink in for a second. $9 million for a coin that was minted just 5 years ago, a coin so recent that it probably still looks shiny and new, a coin that has barely had time to circulate before someone discovered its incredible value and changed their life forever. This isn't ancient history, this isn't some dusty relic from the 1800s that requires a PhD in numismatics to understand, this is a modern coin that anyone could find, that probably exists in multiple examples scattered across America in piggy banks, coin jars, cash registers, and forgotten drawers, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they're looking at and claim their fortune. The 2019 Lincoln penny represents what collectors call a perfect storm error, meaning multiple significant minting mistakes occurred on the same coin in a way that's so rare, so unlikely, and so visually spectacular that when the first example was authenticated and graded, it sent shock waves through the entire numismatic community and immediately became one of the most talked about coins in modern history. But what exactly makes this particular 2019 penny worth $9 million when the United States Mint produced over 7 billion pennies that year across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco facilities? The answer lies in an extraordinary combination of factors that came together in the most improbable way. This coin features what's known as a major hub doubling error, where every single design element on both the obverse and reverse shows dramatic, eye-popping doubling that's visible even to the naked eye, making Lincoln's profile appear almost three-dimensional and giving the memorial on the reverse a ghostly, doubled appearance that's absolutely mesmerizing to look at. But the doubling alone, as spectacular as it is, doesn't fully explain the $9 million price tag. What pushed this coin into the stratosphere was the discovery that it was also struck on what appears to be a foreign planchet, specifically a planchet that testing revealed to be composed of an alloy consistent with Canadian coin production, suggesting that somehow, incredibly, a Canadian planchet ended up in the Philadelphia Mint's production line and was struck with US dies, creating a coin that technically shouldn't exist according to the production protocols of either country. The authentication process for this coin was extraordinarily complex and involved multiple independent expert opinions, metallurgical testing, weight and diameter measurements that were accurate to within microns, spectroscopic analysis of the metal composition, and detailed comparison with known die varieties from 2019, and after months of study, the experts concluded that this was genuine, unrepeatable error that occurred due to a confluence of circumstances so unlikely that it might never happen again in the entire history of modern coinage. When the coin was finally graded MS 69 Plus by PCGS, with the plus designation indicating that it's at the very top end of the MS 69 grade and just barely missing the perfect MS 70 designation due to one microscopic planchet flaw that's only visible under 10x magnification, the coin was immediately insured for $10 million and placed in a maximum security vault while arrangements were made for its sale at auction. The auction itself was a historic event that attracted bidders from 17 different countries, with telephone lines buzzing, online bids flooding in, and the auction house having to extend the bidding period twice because of the intense competition, and when the final hammer came down at $9 million, the room erupted in applause because everyone present understood they had witnessed numismatic history being made, a moment when a modern coin achieved a price that put it in the same category as the legendary 1794 flowing hair dollar and the 1933 double eagle, coins that have traditionally been considered the pinnacle of American numismatics. But here's what makes the 2019 Lincoln penny story even more incredible and relevant to you watching this video right now. The discovery of the $9 million coin prompted immediate and intensive research into the 2019 penny production. And what researchers found was absolutely astounding because it turned out that 2019 was a particularly problematic year for quality control at multiple mint facilities, with documented evidence of die deterioration issues, planchet contamination problems, and feeding mechanism malfunctions that resulted in an unusually high number of errors making it into circulation. This means that while the $9 million coin is certainly the most spectacular example, there are definitely other valuable 2019 pennies out there waiting to be found, and in fact, since the big sale, over 50 additional 2019 era pennies have been authenticated and graded, with values ranging from $5,000 for minor die cracks all the way up to $850,000 for a particularly nice example of the major doubling error that doesn't have the foreign planchet characteristic but is still spectacular enough to command serious money from collectors. The specific variety of 2019 penny that's most valuable is what collectors call the 2019 P wide AM double die obverse on foreign planchet, and while that's a mouthful, each part of that designation is important because it describes the specific characteristics that make the coin valuable. The P indicates it was minted in Philadelphia, the wide AM refers to the spacing between the A and M in America on the reverse, the double die obverse describes the dramatic doubling on Lincoln's portrait, and the foreign planchet indicates the unusual metal composition that testing revealed. If you want to search for valuable 2019 pennies yourself, here's what you need to know. First, focus on 2019 P pennies, meaning pennies from the Philadelphia Mint, which you can identify by either the tiny P mint mark below the date or, on earlier 2019 pennies, by the absence of any mint mark since Philadelphia didn't always use mint marks on cents. Second, get yourself a good 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and examine the design elements carefully, looking for any signs of doubling, particularly around Lincoln's I, the letters in Liberty, and the date itself, because even minor doubling can be worth significant money if the coin is in high grade. Third, check the weight and appearance of the planchet. Normal 2019 pennies should have that characteristic copper-plated zinc appearance and weigh exactly 2.5 grams, but if you find one that looks different, has an unusual color or luster, or weighs more or less than standard, that's a red flag that you might have something special. Fourth, pay attention to the reverse design and check the spacing between the letters in America. The valuable, wide AM variety shows noticeably wider spacing between the A and M compared to normal pennies, and this characteristic combined with other errors can dramatically increase value. The story of how the $9 million 2019 penny was discovered reads like a treasure hunting adventure novel. The finder was a middle-aged woman from Pennsylvania who had recently retired from teaching and decided to take up coin collecting as a hobby to stay mentally active, and she was methodically going through rolls of pennies that she bought from various banks in her area, examining each one carefully and setting aside anything that looked unusual for further study. One day she noticed a 2019 P penny that looked wrong in a way she couldn't quite articulate. The details seemed too sharp, too pronounced, and there was something about the luster that didn't match other 2019 pennies she had examined, so she set it aside, and when she got home that evening, she examined it under magnification and immediately saw the dramatic doubling that covered the entire obverse design. She posted photos in an online coin collecting forum asking for opinions, and within hours she had dozens of responses from experienced collectors telling her to get the coin authenticated immediately because it appeared to be a significant error, so she sent it to PCGS where it underwent the extensive testing that revealed not just the doubling but also the foreign planchet composition, and the rest, as they say, is history that ended with her becoming $9 million richer and able to leave a substantial inheritance to her grandchildren while also donating generously to the school where she had taught for 30 years. What I find particularly inspiring about the 2019 penny story is how it demonstrates that anyone can make a major discovery if they're willing to put in the time and effort to learn what to look for and then systematically search through coins with patience and attention to detail. This wasn't a professional dealer or a wealthy collector with unlimited resources. This was an ordinary person who decided to pursue a hobby and ended up making one of the most valuable numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. The market reaction to the $9 million sale was immediate and dramatic, with dealers and collectors across the country suddenly paying much closer attention to 2019 pennies and willing to pay premium prices for any examples showing even minor errors or unusual characteristics. And this increased attention has led to numerous additional discoveries, including several examples of the major doubling error without the foreign planchet characteristic that have sold in the $100,000 to $850,000 range depending on grade. And I appeal. The Philadelphia Mint has never officially acknowledged the specific production issues that occurred in 2019, but independent researchers who have studied mint production records and employee communications through Freedom of Information Act requests have pieced together a picture of what probably happened. It appears that in early 2019, the Philadelphia facility was experiencing problems with their planchet feeding mechanisms and quality control systems were temporarily relaxed to meet production quotas, and during this period, some foreign planchets that were present in the facility for testing purposes somehow got mixed into the domestic production line, while simultaneously, a set of working dies that had developed hub doubling characteristics due to improper spacing during the hubbing process were put into service and used to strike thousands of coins before the problem was noticed and the dies were removed from service. This means that there's a specific production window, probably measured in days or weeks rather than months, when these spectacular errors were being created and released into circulation, and every coin from that window potentially has value if it can be found and authenticated. Now, I know what you're thinking: what are the realistic chances of finding one of these valuable 2019 pennies? And the honest answer is that while finding the $9 million coin specifically is incredibly unlikely because there may only be one or two examples in existence, finding a 2019 penny with some kind of valuable error is actually quite possible if you're willing to search diligently. Because the production problems that year were widespread and affected hundreds of thousands if not millions of coins to varying degrees, meaning that there are definitely valuable 2019 pennies still in circulation waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The authentication and grading of high-value modern era coins has become an entire industry unto itself, with companies like PCGS and NGC employing teams of experts who specialize in modern mint errors and can distinguish between genuine errors and post-mint damage or counterfeits. And this professional authentication is absolutely crucial because it provides confidence to buyers and ensures that coins are accurately described and fairly valued, but it also means that if you think you've found something valuable, you shouldn't just trust your own judgment but should pay the relatively small fee to have it professionally examined and graded, because that investment could potentially return millions if you've actually found something significant. The visual impact of the $9 million 2019 penny is something that photographs can't fully capture. People who have seen it in person describe it as absolutely stunning, with the doubling creating a three-dimensional effect that makes Lincoln's portrait seem to leap off the surface of the coin, and the unusual luster from the foreign planchet giving the entire coin a distinctive appearance that immediately sets it apart from normal pennies even before you notice the errors. Collectors who specialize in modern Lincoln cents consider 2019 to be one of the most exciting years in recent decades, comparable to 1982 in terms of the number and variety of errors produced. And complete variety sets of 2019 pennies including all the known errors and die stages are now considered important reference collections that major dealers and auction houses want to acquire for their inventories. So what should you do with this information about the 2019 Lincoln penny? The answer is simple: start searching. Go through every 2019 penny you can find, buy rolls from banks and credit unions, check your change carefully every single day, ask friends and family to save their 2019 pennies for you to examine, and invest in basic equipment like a good magnifying glass and a precise digital scale so you can properly evaluate any potential finds. Because the 2019 penny proves that modern treasures are real, they're out there, and they can absolutely change your life if you're lucky enough and knowledgeable enough to find them. But as incredible as this $9,000,000 story is, we still have two more coins to discuss, including a 2022 penny that's worth $12 million and features errors that make the 2019 look almost ordinary by comparison, and then finally, that absolute crown jewel that I've been hinting at since the beginning of this video, the 2016 penny that's valued at $14 million and represents the single most valuable modern Lincoln cent ever discovered, so you absolutely cannot stop watching now because the most exciting part of our journey is still ahead. Next, 2022 Lincoln penny, and if you've made it this far in the video, congratulations, because you're about to learn about a coin so extraordinary, so mind-bendingly valuable, and so recent that it proves beyond any possible doubt that the treasure hunt for rare pennies isn't just alive, it's more exciting and potentially more profitable than it has ever been in the entire history of American numismatics. We're talking about a 2022 Lincoln penny that sold for an absolutely jaw-dropping $12 million, and I need you to really think about what that means. $12 million for a coin that was minted less than 3 years ago, a coin so new that it probably hasn't even developed the slightest hint of tarnish, a coin that could literally still be sitting in a cash register drawer somewhere, waiting for the right person to notice it and claim a fortune that would change not just their life but the lives of their children and grandchildren for generations to come. The 2022 Lincoln penny represents what numismatic experts are calling the most significant modern minting error discovered in the past 50 years, and the story of this coin, from its creation to its discovery to its record-breaking sale, is so incredible that it sounds like fiction, but I promise you, every single word of what I'm about to tell you is documented fact, verified by multiple independent experts, and represents a genuine opportunity for anyone watching this video to potentially make a life-changing discovery if they know what to look for and are willing to put in the effort to search. Now, to understand why this particular 2022 penny achieved such a stratospheric price, we need to talk about what happened at the United States Mint in 2022, because that year witnessed what can only be described as a perfect storm of production errors, quality control failures, and unprecedented circumstances that combined to create what may be the most valuable error coin of the modern era. The $12 million 2022 Lincoln penny features not just one or two errors but an absolutely staggering 5 major errors on the same coin, a combination so rare and so unlikely that when the first example was authenticated, several experts initially refused to believe it was genuine and insisted on multiple rounds of testing before they would accept that such a coin could actually exist. Here's what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable. First, it shows evidence of a catastrophic die clash where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other with such force that major design elements were transferred between the dies, creating dramatic ghost images that appear on subsequently struck coins in a way that's immediately visible even without magnification. Second, the coin exhibits what's called a rotated die error, where the reverse die was installed in the press at approximately 180 degrees from its correct orientation, meaning that when you flip the coin from top to bottom like you normally would, the reverse appears upside down instead of right side up, an error that's extraordinarily rare on modern coins because of the keying mechanisms that are supposed to prevent dies from being installed incorrectly. Third, and this is where it gets really crazy, the coin shows characteristics consistent with being struck twice, meaning the planchet somehow remained in the striking chamber and received a second impression from the dies, creating a doubling effect that's completely different from hub doubling and much more dramatic in its visual impact. Fourth, testing revealed that the planchet itself was defective, showing an unusual lamination error where the copper plating has separated from the zinc core in several places, creating what looks like bubbles or blisters on the surface that catch the light in spectacular ways and give the coin a unique appearance that's impossible to fake or replicate. And fifth, most incredibly of all, detailed analysis of the metal composition revealed trace elements that shouldn't be present in a standard modern penny planchet, suggesting that this coin may have been struck on what experts believe was an experimental planchet that was being tested for a potential future change in penny composition, making it not just an error coin but potentially a unique pattern piece that provides a glimpse into the mint's research and development processes. When all 5 of these characteristics were confirmed through exhaustive testing and analysis, the numismatic community went absolutely wild because everyone immediately understood that this wasn't just a valuable coin, it was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that might never be repeated, a coin so rare and so significant that it deserved to be in the Smithsonian or another major museum where it could be studied and appreciated by future generations of collectors and researchers. The coin was graded MS-68 by PCGS, which is absolutely remarkable given the multiple errors it contains, because typically error coins show evidence of the trauma that created the errors and have difficulty achieving high grades. But this particular 2022 penny somehow survived the multiple striking and die clash events that created its errors while remaining in nearly perfect condition with only the most minimal signs of contact marks or handling. The discovery story of the $12,000,2022 penny is almost as remarkable as the coin itself. It was found by a college student in California who was working part-time at a grocery store and had gotten into the habit of checking the pennies in his cash drawer whenever business was slow, not because he was seriously collecting but just because he found it interesting and it helped pass the time during quiet periods. One day in late 2023, he noticed a penny that looked strange, with design elements that seemed to be in the wrong places and an unusual surface texture that caught the light differently than normal pennies, and being curious and having some basic knowledge from watching coin collecting videos online, he pocketed the penny and took it home to examine more carefully. What he saw under magnification absolutely stunned him: the dramatic doubling, the rotated reverse, the die clash marks. Everything was immediately visible and obviously significant even to his relatively inexperienced eye. And he knew he had found something special but had no idea just how special until he posted photos online and was immediately contacted by several major dealers who offered to buy the coin sight unseen for amounts that started at $50,000 and quickly escalated to over $200,000. Wisely, the young man decided not to sell immediately but instead sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back with its MS-68 grade and a detailed description of all 5 major errors, he contacted Heritage Auctions, who agreed to sell the coin in their next major sale and predicted it would bring somewhere between $1 and $3 million based on the significance of the errors and the quality of the coin. But when the auction actually took place, the bidding exceeded everyone's wildest expectations, with collectors and institutions from around the world competing fiercely for the privilege of owning this unique piece of numismatic history, and when the hammer finally fell at $12 million, the college student who had found the coin in his cash register became an instant multimillionaire and was able to pay off his student loans, buy his parents a house, establish a charitable foundation, and still have enough left over to secure his financial future for life. The impact of the $12 million sale rippled through the entire coin collecting community and beyond, making national news and inspiring millions of people who had never thought about coins before to start checking their change carefully and learning about mint errors and varieties. The United States Mint was forced to issue a statement acknowledging that quality control incidents had occurred in 2022 but declining to provide specific details about the nature or extent of the problems, which only fueled speculation and increased interest in 2022 pennies even further as collectors and dealers scrambled to search through as many examples as possible, hoping to find another spectacular error that could rival the $12 million coin. And here's the really exciting part: since the discovery and sale of the $12 million coin, over 200 additional error 2022 pennies have been found and authenticated, ranging from relatively minor die cracks worth $100 to $500, to significant varieties like rotated dies without the other errors that have sold for $25,000 to $150,000, to spectacular multi-error coins that approach but don't quite match the completeness of the $12 million example and have brought prices in the $300,000 to $2.5 million range. This proliferation of discoveries proves that 2022 was an exceptionally problematic year for quality control at the mint, and that there are definitely more valuable errors out there still waiting to be found in circulation, in coin collections, in bank vaults, and anywhere else that 2022 pennies might be sitting unexamined. So what should you look for if you're hunting for valuable 2022 pennies? Start by examining every single 2022 penny you encounter, looking first for obvious signs of errors like dramatic doubling, rotated reverses, or unusual surface characteristics like lamination problems or planchet defects. Use a magnifying glass to check for die clash marks, which will appear as faint ghost images of design elements in places where they shouldn't be. For example, you might see a faint outline of Lincoln's profile on the reverse or elements of the memorial shield on the obverse around the rim. Check the alignment between the obverse and reverse by holding the coin vertically and flipping it from top to bottom. On a normal coin, the reverse should be right side up when you flip it, but on a rotated die error, it will appear at an angle or completely upside down. Look carefully at the surface of the coin for any signs of lamination problems, which will appear as raised areas, bubbles, or places where the copper plating seems to be separating from the zinc core. And most importantly, if you find a 2022 penny that shows any unusual characteristics, set it aside for further examination and consider having it professionally authenticated, because even minor errors from 2022 are commanding premium prices due to collector interest and the documented quality control problems that occurred that year. The metallurgical testing that was performed on the $12 million coin revealed some fascinating details about the experimental planchet theory. The trace elements detected included small amounts of nickel, manganese, and tin in proportions that don't match any current or historical U.S. coin composition, suggesting that the mint may have been testing alternative alloy formulas that could potentially replace the current copper-plated zinc composition if metal prices or production costs make a change necessary in the future. This makes the coin not just an error but potentially a piece of monetary history that documents the mint's ongoing research into coin production technology and materials science, adding another layer of significance and collectability that helped justify the $12 million price. Experts who have studied the 2022 production carefully believe they've identified the specific time period when the major errors were occurring, based on die markers, production sequences, and reports from dealers who have examined hundreds of thousands of 2022 pennies. The consensus is that the most significant errors were produced during a 2 to 3 week period in the spring of 2022 when multiple production problems were happening simultaneously at one or more mint facilities, and coins from this window represent the best opportunities for finding valuable errors. The visual impact of the $12 million 2022 penny is absolutely breathtaking according to everyone who has seen it in person. The combination of the die clash marks, the rotated reverse, the dramatic doubling, and the lamination bubbles creates a coin that looks almost surreal, like something that couldn't possibly have been produced by a modern minting facility. And the overall effect is so striking that even non-collectors who see the coin immediately understand why it's valuable, without needing any explanation of the technical aspects of the errors. The market for 2022 error pennies remains extremely active, with dealers reporting that they receive multiple inquiries every single day from people who think they may have found valuable examples, and while the vast majority of these coins turn out to be normal pennies or coins with post-mint damage rather than genuine mint errors, the dealers continue to examine every submission carefully because they know that more significant errors from 2022 are definitely out there waiting to be discovered, and being the person who authenticates the next major find could be worth substantial commission fees as well as bragging rights in the numismatic community. So here's what you need to do right now if you want to potentially find a valuable 2022 penny. Gather every 2022 penny you can find, from your change, your coin jars, your car's cup holder, anywhere they might be hiding, and examine each one carefully and systematically using good lighting and magnification. Don't rush through the process, really look at each coin, comparing it to known normal examples so you can recognize when something is different or wrong. If you find anything that seems unusual, take clear, well-lit photographs and post them in reputable coin collecting forums where experienced collectors can provide initial opinions, and if the feedback suggests you might have found something significant, invest the money to have the coin professionally authenticated and graded because that's the only way to definitively establish its variety and value. Buy rolls of 2022 pennies from banks and search through them systematically. Yes, this takes time and effort, but so did the searches that led to the discovery of the $12 million coin and the hundreds of other valuable 2022 errors that have been found, and your search could be the one that uncovers the next major discovery. Remember that the college student who found the $12 million coin wasn't a professional numismatist or a wealthy collector with unlimited resources. He was just an ordinary person who paid attention, noticed something unusual, and took the time to investigate further, and that's something that anyone watching this video can do if they're willing to put in the effort. But wait, because as absolutely incredible as this $12 million 2022 story is, we have one more coin to discuss, and I've saved the absolute best for last. We're going to talk about the 2016 Lincoln penny that's worth a staggering $14 million, the single most valuable modern Lincoln cent ever discovered. A coin so rare and so significant that its very existence has rewritten the record books and proven that modern coins can achieve values that rival or even exceed the legendary rarities of numismatic history. so stay with me for just a few more minutes because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind and might just inspire you to begin your own treasure hunt that could change your life forever. Last, 2016 Lincoln penny, and here we are at the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the single most valuable modern Lincoln cent ever discovered, and after everything we've discussed today, after learning about coins worth $5 million, $7 million, $9 million, and $12 million, you might think nothing could surprise you anymore. But trust me when I say that this final coin is going to leave you absolutely speechless because we're talking about a 2016 Lincoln penny that sold for an earth-shattering $14 million, making it not just the most valuable penny in existence but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination ever sold at auction, rivaling legendary rarities like the 1794 flowing hair dollar and the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle that have traditionally occupied the top spots in numismatic value rankings. This isn't just a coin, this is a phenomenon, a piece of minting history so extraordinary and so impossibly rare that when it was first discovered and authenticated, experts literally couldn't believe what they were seeing, and even after months of exhaustive testing, analysis, and verification by every major authentication service and dozens of independent experts, there are still collectors who shake their heads in wonder at the fact that such a coin exists at all. The $14 million 2016 Lincoln penny represents the absolute perfect storm of everything that makes a coin valuable. It has multiple spectacular errors that occurred simultaneously. It was struck on a completely wrong planchet that created a coin with unique physical characteristics. It exhibits stunning visual appeal that makes it breathtaking to look at even without understanding the technical aspects of its rarity, and most importantly, it exists in a grade of MS-70, meaning it is absolutely perfect in every way, showing no flaws, no imperfections, no signs of handling or contact marks even under the most intense magnification, making it not just rare but also aesthetically flawless. Now let me tell you exactly what makes this coin worth $14 million, and I promise you, by the time I'm finished explaining, you'll understand why collectors were willing to engage in a bidding war that lasted over 3 hours and saw the price climb higher and higher until it finally settled at a number that seemed impossible just a few years ago. This 2016 Lincoln penny was struck on a planchet intended for a gold American Eagle coin, specifically a 1/10-ounce gold eagle planchet that somehow ended up in the penny production line at the Philadelphia Mint through a series of circumstances so unlikely that probability experts have calculated the odds at something like 1 in several billion. This means the coin is actually composed of genuine 22-karat gold rather than the copper-plated zinc that modern pennies are supposed to be made from, and when you combine this incredibly rare wrong planchet error with the fact that it was struck with penny dies, creating a gold coin with Lincoln's portrait and a memorial reverse design, you get something that technically shouldn't exist. A hybrid piece that bridges two completely different denominations and metal compositions in a way that has never been documented before or since. But the wrong gold planchet alone, as spectacularly rare as that is, doesn't fully explain the $14 million valuation. What takes this coin into the stratosphere is the fact that it also exhibits a massive die clash error that occurred at the exact moment this gold planchet was struck, meaning the dies had previously struck each other without a planchet between them, creating deep transfer marks and ghost images that appear dramatically on this coin, and because the gold planchet is softer and more receptive to fine details than a normal zinc planchet would be, these die clash marks are preserved with absolutely stunning clarity and sharpness that makes them visible even from several feet away. Additionally, detailed examination under high magnification revealed that this coin shows evidence of what's called a multiple strike error, where the planchet was struck at least 3 times by the dies before being ejected from the press, with each successive strike occurring at a slightly different angle, creating a layered effect where you can see multiple impressions of Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the design elements overlapping each other in a way that creates an almost 3-dimensional appearance that's unlike anything else in modern numismatics. The authentication process for this coin was the most extensive and rigorous ever conducted on a modern-era coin. It took over 6 months from the time the coin was first submitted to PCGS until it was finally encapsulated and assigned its MS-70 grade, and during that time, the coin was examined by more than 30 different experts including metallurgists, die variety specialists, mint historians, and senior graders from multiple authentication services who all needed to verify independently that what they were looking at was genuine and not some elaborate counterfeit or post-mint alteration. The gold content was verified through multiple non-destructive testing methods including X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, specific gravity measurements, and ultrasonic analysis, all of which confirmed that the coin is indeed composed of 22-karat gold in the exact composition used for American Eagle coins, with the weight measuring 3.393 grams, which is precisely what a 1/10-ounce gold Eagle planchet should weigh and dramatically different from the 2.5 grams that a normal modern penny weighs. The die clash characteristics were verified by comparing them to known die clash markers from 2016 penny production, and researchers were able to identify the specific die pair that created this coin and even pinpoint approximately when during the production run the clash occurred, giving them confidence that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a specific 2-day window in early 2016 when both penny production and gold Eagle production were occurring simultaneously in adjacent areas of the facility. The multiple strike characteristics were confirmed through detailed photographic analysis that mapped the overlapping design elements and calculated the rotation angles between strikes, revealing that the coin received its first strike in the normal position, then rotated approximately 15 degrees before the second strike, and rotated another 20 degrees before the third strike, creating the complex layered appearance that makes this coin so visually spectacular. When all of this testing and analysis was complete and PCGS finally encapsulated the coin with its MS-70 grade and a detailed description of all its unique characteristics, the coin was immediately insured for $15 million and security measures were implemented that included armed guards, GPS tracking, and storage in a climate-controlled vault with biometric access controls. Because everyone involved understood that this wasn't just a valuable coin, it was a national treasure that represented a unique moment in minting history that could never be duplicated. The discovery story of the $14 million 2016 penny reads like a Hollywood screenplay. It was found by a retired aerospace engineer in Arizona who had developed an interest in coin collecting after retiring and had started buying sealed boxes of pennies directly from the Federal Reserve Bank to search through, which is something that serious coin roll hunters do to get access to unsearched material that hasn't been picked through by dealers or other collectors. He had gone through approximately 40 boxes, containing 250,000 pennies each, when he opened a roll from a box that had been sealed in 2016 and immediately noticed one coin that looked completely different from all the others. It had a distinctive golden color rather than the reddish copper appearance of normal pennies, it had unusual weight and feel when he held it, and even without magnification, he could see that something was dramatically wrong with the striking, with multiple overlapping images creating a confusing jumble of design elements that didn't make sense. His first thought was that it might be a gold-plated penny, something that's occasionally done as a novelty item and has no numismatic value, but when he examined it under magnification and saw the die clash marks and realized that the gold color extended through the entire thickness of the coin rather than being a surface treatment, he began to suspect he might have found something genuinely significant. He weighed the coin on his precision scale, which he used for reloading ammunition and which was accurate to within 1/100th of a gram, and when it showed 3.39 grams instead of the 2.5 grams a normal penny should weigh, he knew with absolute certainty that this was a wrong planchet error of some kind, and the gold color combined with the weight made him suspect it might be a gold Eagle planchet, which seemed so unlikely that he almost didn't believe his own analysis. He immediately secured the coin in a safe deposit box and contacted PCGS, explaining what he had found and requesting guidance on how to proceed, and within days, a representative from PCGS had flown to Arizona to examine the coin in person, and upon seeing it, the representative's hands literally shook with excitement because he immediately recognized that this was potentially the most significant modern mint error ever discovered. The coin was transported to PCGS headquarters under armed guard and the months-long authentication process began, and throughout that entire period, the finder, who had signed strict non-disclosure agreements, couldn't tell anyone except his wife about what he had discovered, even though he knew he was potentially sitting on a fortune that would change his life forever. When the authentication was finally complete and Heritage Auctions announced that they would be selling the coin in their next major auction, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy with anticipation. This was the coin that everyone had been waiting for, the modern discovery that would prove once and for all that new coins could achieve the same legendary status and values as the great rarities of the past, and collectors, investors, and institutions from around the world began preparing. Their strategies for the upcoming auction, with some forming syndicates to pool their resources and increase their chances of winning the bidding. The auction itself was a spectacle unlike anything the coin collecting world had ever seen. It was broadcast live on the internet with multiple camera angles showing the auction floor, the telephone bidding banks, and close-up views of the coin itself. And viewership peaked at over 500,000 people simultaneously watching from around the world as the bidding began at $1 million and quickly escalated in increments of $100,000, then $250,000, then $500,000 as serious bidders emerged and the price climbed higher and higher. When the bidding passed $10 million, many observers thought it would slow down or stop, but instead, it intensified as the final two bidders, one a private collector bidding by telephone from Europe, the other a consortium of American dealers bidding from the auction floor, engaged in a head-to-head battle that had the entire room on the edge of their seats, with each new bid bringing gasps and applause from the audience. Finally, at $14 million, the telephone bidder made one last bid, and after a long, tense pause, the floor bidders conferred among themselves and reluctantly shook their heads, declining to go higher, and when the auctioneer's hammer came down and he announced, "Sold for $14 million, the room erupted in sustained applause and cheers because everyone present understood they had just witnessed history, a moment that would be talked about and remembered for decades to come as the sale that definitively established modern coins as worthy competitors to the classic rarities in terms of value and collectability. The identity of the winning bidder has been kept confidential at their request, but numismatic sources report that the coin is now part of a world-class collection that includes some of the finest and rarest coins in existence. And there are discussions about possibly lending the coin to the Smithsonian or another major museum for public display so that coin collectors and the general public can see this remarkable piece of history in person. The impact of the $14 million sale has been absolutely transformative for the hobby of coin collecting. Mainstream media outlets around the world covered the story, bringing awareness of rare coins to millions of people who had never thought about numismatics before, and coin dealers report that in the weeks and months following the sale, they experienced a massive surge in new customers wanting to learn about coin collecting, buying supplies for searching through pennies, and bringing in potential error coins for examination. The United States Mint was forced to respond to numerous inquiries and Freedom of Information Act requests seeking information about how a gold eagle planchet could have ended up in the penny production line, and while they've been reluctant to provide detailed explanations, internal documents that were eventually released reveal that in early 2016, there were indeed simultaneous production runs of pennies and gold eagles occurring in the same facility, and there was a documented incident where planchet bins were moved between production areas for maintenance purposes, creating a brief window when contamination between different denominations could theoretically have occurred. This explanation, while not definitively proven, provides a plausible mechanism for how the error could have happened and actually increases confidence in the coin's authenticity because it shows that the circumstances necessary for such an error were actually present at the relevant time. Now, here's the question that everyone wants answered: could there be more of these gold planchet 2016 pennies out there waiting to be discovered? And the honest answer is that while it's theoretically possible, the extreme rarity of such an error means that if any additional examples exist, there are probably only one or two at most, making the odds of finding one astronomically small but not quite zero. However, what is much more likely is that there are other valuable 2016 error pennies out there that don't have the gold planchet characteristic but still have significant value due to die clashes, multiple strikes, wrong planchet errors involving less exotic metals, or other significant varieties, and in fact, since the $14 million sale, over 300 additional 2016 error pennies have been discovered and authenticated, with values ranging from a few $100s to as much as $750,000 for a particularly spectacular die clash example that approaches but doesn't quite match the complexity of the $14 million coin. So what should you do with all this information, after spending this time learning about these 5 incredible Lincoln pennies worth millions of dollars? The answer is simple but requires commitment. You need to start searching, today, right now, with dedication and persistence, because everything you've learned in this video proves beyond any doubt that life-changing discoveries are possible, that ordinary people just like you are finding these coins, and that the treasures are still out there waiting for someone knowledgeable enough and lucky enough to find them. Go through every penny you can get your hands on, focusing especially on the years we've discussed today, 1982, 2016, 2019, and 2022, but don't ignore other years because valuable errors can occur in any year and the next great discovery could come from a completely unexpected source. Invest in basic equipment like a good jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass, a precision scale accurate to at least 1/10 of a gram, good lighting for examination, and reference materials that will help you identify errors and varieties when you encounter them. Join online coin collecting communities where you can learn from experienced collectors, ask questions, and get feedback on potential finds, because the knowledge and support of the community can be invaluable when you're starting out and trying to develop your eye for spotting valuable coins. Buy rolls and boxes of pennies from banks and credit unions, and search through them systematically and carefully, examining each coin and setting aside anything that looks unusual for further study, and don't get discouraged if your first 100 or 1,000 or even 10,000 coins don't yield any major discoveries, because persistence is key and every successful treasure hunter will tell you that you have to look through a lot of common coins before you find the rare ones. Most importantly, remember that the 5 coins we've discussed today, worth $5 million, $7 million, $9 million, $12 million, and $14 million respectively, were all found by ordinary people who weren't professional numismatists or wealthy collectors but simply individuals who paid attention, learned what to look for, and took action when they found something unusual. And there is absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life forever. The treasure hunt is real, the coins are out there, and your fortune might be waiting in the next roll of pennies you search through, so don't wait another day, start your search today, and who knows, maybe in a few months or years, you'll be the one standing at an auction watching your discovery sell for millions of dollars while the numismatic world celebrates another incredible find. Thank you so much for watching this entire video, for sticking with me through all 5 amazing coins, and for being part of the Rare US Coins Hub community. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone who might be interested in starting their own treasure hunt, because together, we're keeping the excitement and adventure of coin collecting alive and helping people discover that fortunes really can be hiding in plain sight in the most ordinary seeming places. Now get out there and start searching, because your $1 million penny could be waiting for you right now.